By the 1st century BC, the Roman Republic, once a symbol of strength and stability, was on the verge of collapse. Centuries of expansion had brought immense wealth and power, but also deep divisions. The Senate, once the cornerstone of Roman governance, was riddled with corruption and paralyzed by infighting. Powerful elites hoarded the spoils of conquest, while the lower classes struggled to survive. Meanwhile, Rome's military, once loyal to the Republic, was now loyal to its generals. Men like Marius, Sulla, and Pompey used their armies to bend the Republic to their will, turning political disputes into bloody civil wars. Violence and instability became the norm, with Rome teetering on the edge of anarchy. Amid this chaos, the Republic needed a leader, someone who could rise above the factions, restore order, and lead Rome into a new era. That leader was Julius Caesar, a man of unmatched ambition, intelligence, and military genius, a man who would reshape Rome forever. Julius Caesar was born on July 12, 100 BCE, into the ancient Julian family, a patrician lineage that traced its ancestry back to the goddess Venus through the Trojan hero Aeneas. Despite their prestigious heritage, the Julii were no longer one of Rome's wealthiest or most influential families by the time of Caesar's birth. Caesar's father, Gaius Julius Caesar, held the relatively modest position of praetor, overseeing judicial and administrative matters. His mother, Aurelia Cotta, however, was a significant influence on his early life. Known for her intelligence and virtue, Aurelia instilled a sense of discipline and ambition that would guide Caesar throughout his life. But Caesar's childhood was anything but easy. His family lived during one of the most turbulent periods in Roman history, when the Republic was teetering on the edge of collapse. The chaos of the Roman Republic came to a head in Caesar's youth with the rise of Lucius Cornelius Sulla. Sulla was a skilled general who had served Rome in numerous military campaigns, but he was also a deeply ambitious man who sought to reshape Rome's political system to serve his own ends. In 88 BC, Sulla was appointed to lead a military campaign against King Mithridates of Pontus in the east. However, this appointment was challenged by Gaius Marius, another powerful general and a champion of the populares, a faction that represented the interests of the common people. This dispute led to a violent power struggle between Sulla and Marius, plunging Rome into civil war. Sulla emerged victorious and, in 82 BCE, declared himself dictator, a position that traditionally lasted for 6 months, but which Sulla held indefinitely. As dictator, he initiated a reign of terror, purging his political enemies through a series of proscriptions. Caesar's family was deeply entangled in this power struggle. His uncle by marriage, Gaius Marius, was a leading figure and a bitter rival of Sulla. After Marius's death, Caesar's aunt Julia, Marius's wife, continued to be a symbol of opposition to Sulla's regime. As a young man, Caesar himself became a target of Sulla's wrath. In 84 BCE, Caesar had married Cornelia, the daughter of Lucius Cornelius Cinna, a prominent ally of Marius. This union firmly aligned Caesar with the populares faction. When Sulla came to power, he demanded that Caesar divorce Cornelia as a show of loyalty to the new regime. But Caesar refused. This decision put him in grave danger, and Sulla confiscated his inheritance and placed him on the proscription list. Forced to flee Rome, Caesar spent several years as a fugitive, narrowly avoiding capture on multiple occasions. It is said that when Sulla's allies questioned why he was so focused on Caesar, Sulla famously remarked, "In this young man, I see many Mariuses." While in exile, Caesar joined the military, serving in Asia Minor and Cilicia. This period was formative for him. He distinguished himself in battle, showing extraordinary courage and earning the civic crown for saving the lives of fellow soldiers during a siege. When Sulla finally stepped down as dictator in 79 BC and died shortly after, Caesar returned to the city. Although his family's fortunes had been diminished, Caesar began the long and calculated climb to power, intelligence, and sheer determination to rebuild his life and reputation. Caesar's first step was to build his reputation among the Roman people. He began his career as an advocate, prosecuting corrupt governors and senators. Caesar's speeches, filled with emotion and persuasive arguments, made him a favorite among the populares faction, which championed the cause of the common people. While building his career in Rome, Caesar decided to further his education and prestige. In 75 BC, he traveled to the island of Rhodes to study rhetoric under the famous teacher Apollonius Malunet. While crossing the Aegean Sea, Caesar's ship was intercepted by Cilician pirates, infamous marauders who terrorized the Mediterranean. The pirates captured Caesar and his companions, taking them to their base. The pirates, unaware of Caesar's potential significance, initially demanded a ransom of 20 talents of silver, a significant sum but not unreasonable for a Roman noble. For over a month, Caesar lived among the pirates while his associates raised the ransom. Remarkably, he treated them not as captors but as subordinates, issuing orders and participating in their activities. He even joked that once freed, he would return to crucify them all, a threat the pirates took as humor, but one that Caesar fully intended to keep. After the ransom was paid and Caesar was released, he wasted no time. True to his word, he organized a small fleet, tracked down the pirates, and captured them. Caesar demonstrated both his ruthlessness and sense of justice by having the pirates crucified, a punishment typical for their crimes. However, in a rare show of mercy, he ordered their throats to be cut first, sparing them prolonged suffering. After his triumphant return to Rome, Julius Caesar's political career began to gain momentum. His relentless ambition and connections to influential figures made him a rising star. He started with smaller roles, including serving as a military tribune, a position that allowed him to connect with the common soldiers and the people of Rome. In 69 BC, Caesar was elected quaestor, a financial administrator responsible for overseeing public funds. During his tenure as quaestor, Caesar delivered a powerful eulogy for his aunt Julia, the widow of Gaius Marius. In this speech, Caesar openly celebrated Marius's legacy, a controversial move that cemented his alignment with the populares. From there, Caesar continued to rise through the ranks of Roman politics. Then, in 63 BC, Caesar achieved another major milestone when he was elected Pontifex Maximus, the chief priest of Rome. This was not only a religious title, but also a powerful political position, granting him influence over Roman public life. Many were shocked by Caesar's victory, as he won against older, more established candidates. But Caesar's alliances and ability to appeal to the people proved unbeatable. In 61 BC, Caesar was appointed governor of Hispania Ulterior, a province in modern-day Spain. This position gave him a chance to showcase his military and administrative skills. During his time in Spain, Caesar led successful campaigns against local tribes, expanded Roman control, and enriched the province. These campaigns gave him the opportunity to command legions and build the loyalty of his soldiers, something that would prove crucial in the years to come. By the time Caesar returned to Rome in 60 BC, he was a war hero with a growing reputation for leadership, ambition, and success. But his sights were set on an even greater prize, the consulship, the highest office in the Roman Republic. To secure the consulship, Caesar knew he needed powerful allies. He brokered a secret alliance with two of Rome's most influential figures, Pompey the Great, a celebrated general and statesman, and Marcus Licinius Crassus, the wealthiest man in Rome. This alliance, known as the First Triumvirate, was a political pact that allowed the three men to dominate Roman politics. Each had something to gain. Pompey sought land for his veterans, Crassus wanted policies that favored his financial interests, and Caesar needed their support to achieve his ambitions. With their backing, Caesar successfully ran for consul in 59 BC. He won the election, and at the age of 41, Julius Caesar became one of the two consuls of Rome. As consul, Caesar wasted no time pushing through reforms that benefited his allies and the Roman people. He distributed land to veterans and the poor, reorganized tax systems, and strengthened the power of the populares faction. But Caesar's methods were controversial. He bypassed traditional Senate procedures, often forcing through legislation with the help of Pompey's soldiers and the support of the public. His boldness alienated the conservative senators, who viewed him as a threat to the republic's traditions. Among his fiercest critics was his co-consul, Marcus Bibulus, who spent much of the year in political isolation, unable to counter Caesar's dominance. By the end of his term as consul, Caesar had not only fulfilled his promises, but also secured a new role that would define his career, the governorship of Gaul. This position gave him command of legions and the opportunity to lead military campaigns that would expand Rome's borders. By Caesar's time, Gaul was an expansive and largely untamed region inhabited by independent Celtic tribes. Although parts of it were under Roman control, much of the land was unconquered, and its people posed a constant threat to Roman territories. For Caesar, Gaul was not just an opportunity to defend Rome, it was a chance to build his legacy, strengthen his political position, and secure the loyalty of his legions. Caesar's first test came in 58 BC with the migration of the Helvetii, a powerful Celtic tribe seeking to settle in western Gaul. The Helvetii's massive migration, which included over 300,000 people, threatened to disrupt the balance of power in the region. Caesar saw this as both a threat and an opportunity. Mobilizing his legions, he intercepted the Helvetii at the Battle of Bibracte. The clash was brutal, but Caesar's strategic brilliance and the discipline of his troops prevailed. The Helvetii were decisively defeated, and the survivors were forced to return to their homeland under Roman terms. This victory secured Rome's borders and also marked the beginning of Caesar's conquest of Gaul. It sent a clear message to the Gallic tribes: Rome was not to be challenged. Fresh from his victory over the Helvetii, Caesar turned his attention to a new threat: Ariovistus, a Germanic king who had crossed the Rhine and established a foothold in Gaul. Ariovistus's growing power alarmed both the Roman Senate and the Gallic tribes, many of whom sought Caesar's protection. In a series of negotiations, Ariovistus refused to back down, dismissing Caesar's demands and even mocking Rome's power. Caesar responded decisively, marching his legions to confront the Germanic forces. The two armies met near modern-day Alsace. The Germans, known for their ferocity in battle, were a formidable foe, but Caesar's tactics and the discipline of his legions proved superior. The Germanic forces were crushed, and Ariovistus fled across the Rhine, never to return. With this victory, Caesar had secured Rome's dominance in Gaul. Over the next several years, Caesar systematically expanded Roman control over Gaul. He conducted campaigns against powerful tribes like the Belgae in northern Gaul and the Veneti in the west, using a combination of military might and diplomacy. Caesar's campaigns were marked by innovative tactics, including naval battles against the Veneti's advanced ships and the construction of massive siege works to subdue fortified cities. By 54 BC, most of Gaul was under Roman control, and Caesar had cemented his reputation as a brilliant and ruthless commander. But the conquest of Gaul was not without its challenges. Caesar faced constant resistance from the fiercely independent Gallic tribes. The most serious threat came in 52 BC, when a charismatic chieftain named Vercingetorix united the Gallic tribes in a revolt against Roman rule. Vercingetorix was a leader unlike any Caesar had faced before. He unified the Gallic tribes in a last-ditch effort to drive the Romans out. The revolt culminated in the Battle of Alesia, one of the most famous sieges in military history. Vercingetorix and his forces took refuge in the fortified city of Alesia, surrounded by steep hills and rivers. Caesar, recognizing the strategic challenge, ordered his legions to construct two massive walls, one encircling Alesia to trap the defenders and another facing outward to repel reinforcements. The siege lasted weeks, with the Gallic forces making desperate attempts to break through Caesar's lines. At one point, the situation became so dire that even Caesar's legions began to falter. But Caesar's leadership, combined with the discipline and loyalty of his troops, turned the tide. The Gallic reinforcements were defeated, and Vercingetorix was forced to surrender. With the fall of Alesia, the Gallic resistance was effectively crushed. Vercingetorix was taken prisoner and paraded through the streets of Rome before being executed. With Gaul subdued, Caesar's ambitions set him on a collision course with Rome itself. The Republic stands on the brink of transformation. Gallic wars transformed Caesar's fortunes. He had expanded Rome's territory, secured vast wealth, and gained the unwavering loyalty of his legions. His military achievements elevated him to near mythical status, but they also alarmed his political rivals in Rome. The Senate, led by conservative figures like Cato and Pompey, grew increasingly wary of Caesar's power. They saw his successes not as victories for Rome, but as steps toward tyranny. Caesar's time in Gaul had made him a hero to the people, but it had also set the stage for a deadly confrontation back home. As Caesar returned from Gaul, he faced a choice: surrender his command and risk obscurity, or march on Rome and seize power. What followed would bring an end to the Republic and usher in the age of empire. Back in Rome, Caesar's enemies were growing in number. Chief among them was Pompey, once his closest ally in the first triumvirate. Their partnership had been built on political necessity, but as Caesar's influence grew, so did Pompey's fear of losing control. The Senate, under Pompey's influence, demanded that Caesar disband his army and return to Rome as a private citizen. To them, Caesar's military power and popularity represented a dangerous step toward tyranny. In January of 49 BC, Caesar faced a momentous choice: comply with the Senate's order and risk losing his power, or defy them and risk plunging Rome into civil war. At the heart of this decision lay the Rubicon River, the boundary separating his province from the Roman heartland. To cross the Rubicon with his army was an act of treason, a declaration of war against the Senate and Pompey. It was said that as Caesar approached the river, he hesitated, weighing the enormity of his actions. Finally, he uttered the famous words, "Alia iacta est," the die is cast. With that, Caesar led his legions across the Rubicon, signaling the start of a civil war that would determine the fate of Rome. The crossing of the Rubicon threw Rome into turmoil. Pompey and the Senate fled to Greece, leaving Caesar to march unopposed into Rome. His strategy was bold and decisive. He moved quickly to secure Italy, winning over cities and their populations with promises of clemency. Meanwhile, Pompey amassed his forces in the east, confident that his larger army and naval superiority would crush Caesar. But Caesar's genius lay in his speed and adaptability. The decisive confrontation came in 48 BC on the plains of Pharsalus in Greece. Pompey's army outnumbered Caesar's nearly 2-1, but Caesar's veterans were battle-hardened and fiercely loyal. The battle began with Pompey's forces pressing their advantage, but Caesar's tactical brilliance soon turned the tide. Using a hidden reserve of troops, he launched a devastating counterattack that shattered Pompey's lines. The once great general fled the battlefield, seeking refuge in Egypt, where Pompey met a tragic end, assassinated by the orders of Egypt's young king, Ptolemy XIII. After the defeat and death of Pompey in Egypt, Caesar found himself caught in a volatile political struggle between the young pharaoh Ptolemy and his sister Cleopatra. Cleopatra sought Caesar's support to reclaim her throne, and their alliance, both political and personal, would soon ignite the Alexandrine War. Ptolemy, angered by Caesar's favor toward Cleopatra, launched an attack to drive Caesar out of Alexandria. With a limited number of troops, Caesar was besieged in the royal palace, fighting to maintain his position in a hostile city. The siege of Alexandria was marked by brutal street fighting and a desperate struggle for control of the city. During the conflict, a fire broke out in the harbor, consuming parts of the city, including the famed Library of Alexandria, a tragic loss for human knowledge. Despite being outnumbered, Caesar's strategic brilliance turned the tide. Reinforcements from Rome arrived, and with Cleopatra's support, Caesar defeated Ptolemy's forces decisively. Ptolemy drowned while attempting to flee, and Cleopatra was restored to the throne as Egypt's sole ruler. With the Alexandrine War concluded, Caesar and Cleopatra's alliance grew deeper. Legend has it that Cleopatra, known for her cunning and charm, arranged to be smuggled into Caesar's quarters, rolled up in a carpet. This daring act captivated Caesar, and the two soon formed a partnership that was as personal as it was political. Their alliance was mutually beneficial. Cleopatra secured Caesar's support in her bid to rule Egypt alone, and Caesar gained a powerful ally in the wealthiest kingdom of the ancient world. Following their victory over Ptolemy, Caesar and Cleopatra embarked on a grand tour of Egypt, famously sailing down the Nile together. Their relationship was not without its consequences. Cleopatra gave birth to a son, whom she named Ptolemy Caesar or Caesarion, claiming he was Caesar's child. Though Caesar never officially acknowledged him, The boy became a potent symbol of their bond. Julius Caesar returned to Rome in 46 BC as the undisputed master of the Roman world. His military campaigns had crushed his enemies, and his reputation as a conqueror and leader was unrivaled. With his rivals defeated and his popularity soaring, Caesar took the unprecedented step of having himself appointed dictator perpetuo, dictator for life in 44 BC. This position granted him absolute authority over Rome's government, bypassing the traditional checks and balances of the Republic. Caesar began a series of sweeping reforms aimed at stabilizing Rome and consolidating his power. He reorganized the calendar, creating the Julian calendar, which remains the basis for the modern system. He expanded the Senate, adding loyal supporters and representatives from the provinces, a move that angered the traditional Roman elite but strengthened his control. Caesar's reforms went beyond politics. He sought to address the deep social and economic issues that had plagued the Republic for years. He passed laws to reduce debt, redistribute land to veterans and the poor, and build infrastructure to revitalize Rome. But these changes came at a cost. To his supporters, Caesar was a visionary leader who sought to bring stability to a fractured state. To his enemies, he was a tyrant, dismantling the Republic in favor of personal rule. The tension between Caesar and the Senate reached a boiling point. As Caesar planned further reforms and military campaigns, whispers of conspiracy began to spread in the halls of power. Caesar's unprecedented authority and disregard for the traditional republican system alarmed many senators. His growing list of titles, Father of the Fatherland, Imperator, and Dictator for life, and his acceptance of near-divine honors convinced his critics that he sought to crown himself king. For the Roman elite, the idea of monarchy was anathema, a direct betrayal of the Republic's founding principles. A group of senators began plotting to remove Caesar. Among them were men who had once been close to him, including Gaius Cassius Longinus and Marcus Junius Brutus. Brutus, in particular, struggled with the decision, torn between his loyalty to Caesar and his commitment to the Republic. The conspirators believed that Caesar's death was the only way to restore the Republic. Their plan was bold yet simple. Strike Caesar down in the Senate, the very heart of Roman political life, where weapons were forbidden and Caesar would be most vulnerable. On the morning of March 15, 44 BC, Caesar ignored several ominous signs. His wife Calpurnia had been plagued by nightmares, begging him to stay home. A soothsayer had famously warned him to beware the Ides of March, but Caesar, confident in his position and dismissive of superstitions, went to the Senate as planned. As Caesar entered the theater of Pompeii, the attack began suddenly. The first daggers struck. Shocked and unable to defend himself, Caesar was set upon by more than 60 conspirators. According to legend, Caesar resisted at first, but when he saw Brutus among the attackers, he uttered the famous words, "Ea tu Brute, you too Brutus." Moments later he fell, stabbed 23 times. His lifeless body lay at the base of a statue of Pompey, his former ally turned rival, an ironic end to one of history's greatest figures. The death of Julius Caesar sent shockwaves through Rome. The conspirators believed they had saved the Republic, but instead they unleashed chaos. Caesar's assassination marked the beginning of the end for the Roman Republic, as his death created a power vacuum that would soon lead to another civil war. Caesar's assassination plunged Rome into chaos once again. His adopted heir Octavian, alongside Mark Antony and Lepidus, formed the second triumvirate to avenge him. The eventual rivalry between Octavian and Antony culminated in the Battle of Actium in 31 BC. Octavian emerged victorious and became Rome's first emperor, Augustus. The Republic was no more. The Roman Empire was born, and its foundations were laid by none other than Julius Caesar. Julius Caesar's life reshaped Rome's political landscape. His name became synonymous with power, inspiring titles like Kaiser in Germany and Tsar in Russia.